What's up guys, my name is Ace, and late last night or early in the morning, depending on your time zone, we got an update for Black Ops Cold War, which of course brought Express to multiplayer, as well as a new zombies map. I'm not going to be touching on anything zombies related just because I'm not really all that interested in zombies. Today we're going to focus on the changes to multiplayer. And with this, there weren't a ton of multiplayer changes. It's not like there was a huge list of weapon balancing or anything, but there were a few key things I want to cover here today, and the first thing is the launcher buff. And let's just dive right into this. First up, I just wanted to show you guys the ranges of the launchers. This is the maximum hit potential with each one of the launchers, and it turns out this didn't change at all with this update, or at least as far as I can tell. It is hard to test to the nearest inch or anything like that, so they might be off by a very small amount. But based on my testing here, nothing changed with the actual ranges of these launchers. However, we did have some damage changes. And first up, let's have a look at the damage values pre-patch versus post-patch when the enemy doesn't have Flak Jacket equipped. Keep in mind, of course, these damage values are assuming we aren't hitting the enemy directly. So the maximum damage, the first value that's displayed, that's assuming we're hitting like right next to their foot or right in between their legs on the ground. And there were only a few changes here, and they're not really all that noticeable in core game modes. One interesting thing I found, though, is the Sigma now apparently can deal 150 damage, which is a one-shot kill without a direct impact. You can kill them in one hit if you hit, like, right next to their foot. This is definitely not forgiving at all. You have to hit, like, right next to their foot, but you can deal 150 damage with it without a direct impact. And then also our minimum damages for the Sigma and the RPG, these have been buffed with this update. With the Sigma, it went from 75 up to about 119-ish. Like I said earlier, I can't get super precise testing done with this just because I can't control the rocket and where it's hitting to the nearest inch or anything. But yeah, the minimum damage appears to be right around 119 for the Sigma, and then for the RPG, it's about 115. It's also worth noting the M79 didn't change at all when it comes to this. And realistically, this doesn't really change a whole lot. When you're battling against non-Flak Jacket enemies, yeah, you're going to be able to deal a bit more damage to them, but it's not really going to change things too much. It's still going to take you 2 rockets to kill, unless you're getting that direct impact most of the time. The more interesting part of this update is what happens when you're against somebody that has Flak Jacket. So let's have a look at pre-patch versus post-patch here. And you can see, once again, the M79 didn't change at all here. I just wanted to point that out. But with the Sigma and the RPG, our maximum damage didn't change at all. So if we're hitting right next to the enemy anyway with Flak Jacket, this has no impact. It only has an impact on our minimum damage. And now, essentially, instead of taking up to 4 shots to kill a Flak Jacket user with a Sigma or an RPG, it will always be a 3-hit kill on a Flak Jacket user that has full health and doesn't have time to heal between shots. And I've got to say, I really don't think this is enough. 3 shots to kill against a Flak Jacket enemy is just way too much with a rocket. With how long it takes to reload them, as well as how few you spawn with, I find this to be a little bit ridiculous. Like, yes, Flak Jacket I think should always be working, and it should always protect you if you've got full health against a single rocket unless it hits you directly. Having said this, I think there should be a 2-hit kill potential against Flak Jacket users with an RPG or a Sigma. Especially if you manage to get that rocket pretty close to them without being a direct impact, it should never take you more than 2 shots, in my opinion. I could maybe see an argument for 3 shots to kill if you're not very accurate with it and you're hitting them more like on the edge of the damage radius. That's fine, because that's kind of on you and it's something you can control. But as it is right now, it doesn't matter if the rocket's hitting right next to their foot or right on the outside edge of where that rocket's able to deal damage to them. It's going to take 3 hits to kill a Flak Jacket user with the RPG and the Sigma. So yeah, that's just my opinion on this. I really don't think this was enough. I don't think this is going to change much at all when it comes to the effectiveness of these launchers against enemy players. And that's a bit unfortunate, because I've been holding off on my launcher camos, just waiting for them to give it a proper buff, and I just don't see this as a proper buff. Now, I also wanted to point out, in hardcore game modes, after this patch, it's still going to take you 3 shots to kill against a Flak Jacket user, even if you're hitting right next to their foot. Which I find to be even more ridiculous, because almost every gun is going to be killing you in 1 bullet, and yet it takes you 3 rockets that take a couple seconds to reload in order to kill a Flak Jacket user. Again, I do think Flak Jacket should protect you against that first rocket, even in hardcore modes, but a second one should definitely be killing you. I really don't understand why they decided to balance launchers this way, but I just completely disagree with it. I don't think this buff was nearly enough to the launchers. As for the next thing with this update, and the thing I'm actually most excited about, it appears, based on my testing so far at least, that they have finally fixed the HARP, and it's working properly now. For those of you guys that don't know, I made a video about this several weeks ago, the jammer field upgrade would often screw up the HARP, and it would bug things out and make it so enemies just wouldn't show up on the radar when they were supposed to be showing up on the radar. And this would apply to not only enemies' jammers being up, but this would also apply if you placed a jammer down, it could potentially hide enemy players from your HARP, which made absolutely no sense whatsoever. And like I said, I've done the initial testing on this, and as far as I can tell so far at least, this has been fixed. And now enemies will be properly showing up on the radar when you call a HARP in, and the only counters to that now are going to be the counter UAV, or you can call in the air support, which will take down the HARP. So yeah, I think this is excellent news. You can now actually trust what your HARP is telling you. And as a result, I'm finally going to start playing for nukes. I haven't really actively gone for nukes yet since Cold War launched. And I was planning on doing that when they added the HARP, but then since I realized that it was so inconsistent and I was just getting shot by people that were supposed to be showing up on the radar but weren't, I decided just to not bother until they fixed it. So now it's fixed, and now it's going to be that much easier to potentially go for that nuke streak. So like I said, I think that's the thing I'm most excited for with this update. That has finally been fixed. However, there's a couple other little fixes that they implemented here. First up, there was a bug with the smoke grenade where sometimes if you were in the smoke but the enemy was outside of the smoke, controller players would be getting aim assist on the people outside of the smoke. However, from the outside looking in, you don't get aim assist on those players that were inside the smoke. So that was obviously an issue, and this has apparently been resolved, so now neither of you will get aim assist. If you're in the smoke, you don't get aim assist. If you're shooting at somebody that's in smoke, you don't get aim assist. And then finally, one last notable change for multiplayer specifically in Cold War is a nerf to that gung-ho trick I shared several weeks back, where if you're holding a piece of equipment in your hand, like a Semtex for instance, you can sprint around the map while holding that out and have literally 0 sprint out time. With this update, you can still do that. You will still get a 0 sprint out time out of this. However, as you're sprinting, your hipfire spread has been significantly increased, so you're going to be far less accurate while doing that. And therefore, this is no longer going to be very viable with most guns. However, this doesn't really fix one of the biggest issues with this, and this is shotguns in hardcore game modes. This little trick has essentially ruined hardcore modes. At least that's what I'm hearing from hardcore players out there. They're really frustrated with this because somebody can run around like this with a Gallo 12, for instance, and they can just be one-shotting people like crazy with a 0 sprint out time, which is extremely powerful in hardcore modes. And having this wider hipfire spread, I don't think changes anything for hardcore because you're still able to hit your target, and that's really all you need to be able to do with the shotguns in hardcore. If you're getting a hit on your target, you're almost always getting a kill out of that. So if anything, it kind of looks like this is just going to make things more forgiving while doing that with a shotgun in hardcore modes. It didn't really target the root of the issue here, but at least that trick isn't really going to be all that effective outside of shotguns in hardcore. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's video on the changes that we saw with this update to multiplayer. Like I said, not a ton of changes, but some very important changes, and it's good to know about these changes. I'd like to know in the comment section below. First up, what do you guys think about what they did to the launchers? Do you think this was enough of a buff to the launchers, or do you think they could use even more of a buff? And also, what do you think about the other changes they've made with this update, like the HARP fix, for instance? Are you really happy about this change, or are you kind of indifferent? Just let me know those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.